from Windsor-Tecumseh.
My question is to the Premier. Good morning, Premier. Speaker, I'd like to tell you and the Premier about my constituent, Ron. Ron contacted my office recently because he was under the impression that the Premier and our Liberal government were actually going to do something about his skyrocketing hydro bill before. So imagine his surprise come January the 1st when he saw the promised temporary 8% rebate on his bill, but the bill was actually higher than it was the month before. So, Speaker, why doesn't the Premier get that people like Ron, people from all over this province, can tell when she puts forward solutions that only address the Premier's sticky political situation and don't actually fix the mess that she has made in our hydro system?
Question. Thank you. Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to rise and address the concern that the honourable member brings forward. And of course, it's great when we all can talk to our constituents and talk about the issues that are affecting them, Mr. Speaker, and the programs that are out there to help them, Mr. Speaker. Knowing the honourable member, I'm sure he told them about many of the programs that we do have out there, and that 8% reduction did take effect, Mr. Speaker, January 1st, but depending on how their bill structure was in place, Mr. Speaker, that will change. As now we're moving forward, that would come into full effect. But let's not forget, Mr. Speaker, 25% is what this individual will now see when he gets his bill, Mr. Speaker, come summertime, a reduction of 25%, Mr. Speaker, and that is something that is very important. That is a significant reduction, Mr. Speaker, for people like Ron and everyone like Ron across the province.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Speaker, yesterday it was immediate relief, now it's in the summertime. It's not just people like Ron who are suffering under this government's political maneuvers. The Greater Essex County District School Board saw hydro cost increase by $50,000 in 2015 and $431,000 in 2016. How can the Premier honestly say to this school board that the plan she released today will actually keep their hydro costs down permanently? Speaker, doesn't she understand that people like Ron and school boards all across this province see this plan for what it actually is, a desperate party playing political games with a hydro system that they made a mess of in the first place?
Thank you. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We had to clean up the mess that was left by previous parties, Mr. Speaker, when they were in power, never investing in the system, never investing in conservation, using cheap power with coal, Mr. Speaker. We've made sure we've made those investments, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the substantial structural changes that we have made, Mr. Speaker, by taking all of these social programs that we've talked about, we've taken that, Mr. Speaker, and pulled it off of the rate base and now put that onto the tax base, Mr. Speaker, where it should be, and rightfully so, Mr. Speaker. That will now see our rates reduced for all of those type of schools, arenas. Those will be a significant cost reduction for these organizations, these facilities as well, Mr. Speaker. The announcement that we made today, Mr. Speaker, when they finally read it all, Mr. Speaker, they will see that there is reductions for every person and every business in this province.
Question, the member from Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Speaker.